Welcome back, tribe. Hope you guys are having a good fall. It is getting chilly over here in Europe. Hopefully we see some snow on the ground this winter. And let's begin. It's Passport Bros and International Dating, approaching the movement from a fresh perspective. It's from Psych Hacks. See what we got.
Psych Hacks, better living through psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is Passport Bros and International Dating. So this is a topic that has come up frequently in the comments of several of my videos, and it's a topic that I've been requested to discuss by many people over the last several months. If you're unfamiliar with the subject, Passport Bros is the collective term for a movement among Western and specifically American men who are increasingly pursuing mating and dating opportunities abroad. These are guys who are flying to places like South America and Southeast Asia and the Middle East in order to access sexual opportunities that they argue aren't available in their home country. And I'm going to respond to this phenomenon through the lens of my recent experiences spending a month in the country of Japan. Now, I'm not very knowledgeable about this phenomenon, but to be honest, there was always something about the Passport Bros movement that felt a little sleazy and pathetic. Without really examining it, my perspective was similar to the prevailing attitude, which was something like this movement was for guys who were too low status or unattractive to beat out their intrasexual competition here. They couldn't get laid in the States, so they basically engage in geo-arbitrage to leverage a relative advantage that wouldn't exist in their home country. My attitude was something like only guys who couldn't get what they want from women here would need to uproot their whole lives and travel halfway around the world, which kind of made these men out to be conniving beta males. That was my attitude before spending a month in Japan. That is no longer my attitude now. Having spent a month in that country, I think I better understand where this movement might be coming from. And
Funny enough, it comes from women. Is he going to say the way he was treated? I haven't seen a second of this video, but he has to describe his experiences with women overseas and has his eyes open.
I definitely don't think it's just for loser men who can't get laid in America. Allow me to explain. From the perspective of my interests and preferences, the quality of the women in Japan was significantly superior to the quality of the women in the Bay Area.
Yep, it's not even close. I have to pause it here because I did an interview with Austin Hallman. He's, quote, Passport Bro. They call him all sorts of things. He was on the media about some incident in Brazil, a bunch of people hating, blah, blah. And he's detailed some of his experiences as traveling around the world. He just did a tour around Africa. Now he's here in Bucharest and then going to tour more of Eastern Europe and wherever else he's headed. But I've met other people, Americans, other Westerners, Australians, people from the UK, guys just traveling from all over the place, just here in Bucharest. And I've talked with them about their experiences because they're also traveling from other parts of the world as well. It's not like they just came from one country straight over here. They're leapfrogging a bunch of places. Every single one of them says the same thing. Western women are inherently low value compared to Eastern Europeans, Latin Americans, Asians, African, wherever you go. It is a culture issue that has rotten the brain of the, quote, modern woman, where she is combative by nature, adversarial in her energy towards men, doesn't want a man to take care of her, is strong and independent. Like the programming from the top, the narratives of society that's pushing and drilling women's brains every single day is that men are evil by default. Men ain't ish. The patriarchy is oppressing them. Men are the problem. Do everything on your own. Never depend on a man. And this has led to all the problems that we see in society in the West right now. We see the degradation of the West in general, the social fabric collapsing, massive explosion in people being isolated, depressed on a ton of pills, unhappier than they've ever been. We're constantly pulling higher and higher in the worst directions for mental health, for depression, anxiety, for self-harm, for self-deletes, everything. Because we lack family, we lack connection, we lack intimacy. Men and women aren't coming together. They're not forming families. How could they? When the energy off the rip when you meet somebody is F them. They ain't ish. What can I get out of this person? It's always what value I can extract from you instead of Here's what I can offer you. And is that good enough? The energy here in Eastern Europe and everywhere else in the world, honestly, except the West, is here's what I can offer you as a person. And I would like to build something with you. In the Western world, it's not the same, man. Is what can I get out of you? What can you offer me? How do I benefit from being with you? Automatically is a disgusting turnoff to meet somebody with that sort of mentality. That is why when a guy, and this is why passport bros and expats and everybody that's traveled with the passport will tell you, please go overseas first before you call it quits on the game. Please see that there are millions of women out there that absolutely would love to settle down, would love to have a family, don't give a shit about social media, don't care about dressing half naked all the time to impress random dudes, don't care about nightclubs, don't care about hanging out with guy friends, don't care about any of the Western values that has completely destroyed the fabric of society. They're cool being at home, cooking for you, taking care of you, taking care of the kids while you handle your business as a man. Supporting, nurturing, feminine energy. It's abundant. It's everywhere except in the West. We've turned women into men and men into women. It's unfortunate. There is always going to be a subsection of men, these losers that do try to go overseas specifically for sex. Of course there are. There are sex tourists, both males and females. Women do it all the time. We've covered it on the channel. The old hags that still want to get it in with the young boy toys. There's always going to be that subset, but it's not indicative of most men. Most men aren't going overseas to just have sex because you could just have sex in the shitty Western environment you're in where sex is abundant for cheap. People don't value their bodies. Women are regularly partaking in hookup culture. If easy, cheap sex with no strings attached is what you want, you're in it in the West. There's no point. Men are leaving because they want more. All you have to do is offer a chick a bag and she's giving it up. That's unfortunate. That's what the West is. If you want to blow a little bit of money on a chick and take her to a 5-star restaurant and get her some pair of shoes, she's going to give it up to you. It's not much. Women have cheapened their value by trading their bodies like a commodity for cheap trinkets like bags, shoes, paying a car note, an apartment. It doesn't take much to get laid. There's literally a dollar value on most women in the hookup culture of the West. It is what it is, man. I'm just saying the truth. It will be unpopular with a bunch of people that may come across this video, but that's the truth.
Like, not by a little, by orders of magnitude. Let me break down some of the various factors that go into that statement. First of all, the women in Japan are slender and physically healthy. I spent a month in some of the largest cities in the world, and I must have seen 10 overweight women in that entire time.
And they're
half of whom were little old ladies.
Exactly. You see, I know right before he even says it, it's the same experience here. Same thing. You have to, like, you could play a game. Let's take a shot for every fat person we see, and you won't get faded at the end of the day. You play that game in the United States, you're getting alcohol poisoning or you're straight up dead within an hour of walking out of your house.
And these overweight women weren't morbidly obese. They were like plump, maybe 20 or 30 pounds overweight max.
Babushka.
Most Western women literally couldn't buy clothes in Japan. The vast majority of Japanese women are slender and physically fit, which is appealing because it's not only attractive, but it indicates a compatible value as well. Like, I want people who care about their health. Second, these women are feminine. They wear dresses and heels and makeup. They tend to dress more conservatively than Western women. No tight clothes, no showing a lot of skin. The feminine ideal there seems to...
No tattoos everywhere. No nasty piercings everywhere. No rainbow colored hair everywhere. Man, it is such a beautiful sight to behold normal people walking around you. It's a breath of fresh air. It really is.
To be like softly elegant, flowing and modest and dignified. And these aren't 1950s housewives. These are women who, for the most part, are working professionals. They have modern ideas. They are educated and accomplished, but they haven't thrown out more traditional conceptualizations of female beauty. This is...
You know what I find interesting about the whole passport bro hate from Western women, specifically when they talk about Southeast Asians, when guys are going, because the Philippines is the one that was blowing up, Thailand and all that. Their go-to is always something racial, like these women are just poor, these women are uneducated because the whole region is underdeveloped, right? The stereotypes. It's crazy to hear women putting down foreign women with so much ignorance. They couldn't be more wrong. If you travel to these countries and you met a lot of these women, they speak multiple languages. They hold college degrees, if not they're in school currently or working already with a career. Most of the time, they're more cultured. They've been around more different people and have more job experiences than the quote Western women that are working their dead end jobs. They went to one party school, got to experience the beta gamma alpha life with the girlfriends, graduated with a shit degree, and now is working for some local company somewhere, making pennies on the dollar, being a little wage cuck in a cubicle. And that woman thinks she's getting ahead. It's wild, man. It truly is. And it shows in their intelligence because their go-to is that these are some uneducated, undeveloped savages. And it's funny because I mention this because the passport bro thing hasn't happened in Europe since it's far more expensive than Southeast Asia. But I always wonder what happens or what would have happened if they came to Eastern Europe, because people here are highly educated, hold multiple degrees, speak 3-4 languages at a time, highly traveled. I'm just talking about my experience in Bucharest. Most of these people have traveled to far more countries than your average American or quote Westerner. And would they be saying the same thing? I don't think they would. I think this is like the racial thing kicking up against Southeast Asians. They wouldn't say this against Eastern Europeans. Funny how that works, because they can't pull that card that these are undeveloped, uneducated, because it's in the heartland. It's in Europe. Funny how that works. Also, I don't know because I'm not keeping up currently with it, but I wonder what the narrative is with Africa. Because I know they say Colombia and most of Latin America like that the stereotype there that it's extremely dangerous, that it's all prostitutes, all they do is want you for the money, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't heard what is the rumblings about passport bros going to Africa. Can someone please in the comments tell me?
This is not something you can easily find in the West anymore. And you can't find it at all in the Bay Area, at all. And I find feminine women very attractive. It resonates with me and inspires me to be even more masculine. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message, because it's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. You can also hit the thanks button and tip me in proportion to the value you feel you derive from this episode. It's your donations that make all this possible. I don't do the product placements and the corporate sponsorships of other channels of this size. And trust me, I get like 50 different offers a day. This helps me stay independent, and it helps me to do what I need to do to keep the channel going. So thank you very much for your support. All right. Third, the women in Japan are extremely respectful. Every woman I interacted with there was extremely warm and friendly. They were receptive to conversation, and they seemed to enjoy, or at least very effectively pretended to enjoy, speaking with me. Even more, they were solicitous about my feelings and seemed concerned that I should enjoy the interaction as well. I didn't experience a single indifferent or disrespectful word, tone, or glance from a woman in a month. This made approaching and talking to women in Japan a much less fraught experience than it is in the US.
Enjoyable. This is why I tell you guys cold approach is king in the rest of the world, because they are approachable. And they want to be approached. And people are accepting and very welcoming and would love to have a conversation. And it's not a one-way conversation. They're genuinely interested in you as well and want to make sure you have a good time. It's not adversarial. You don't sit down at the dinner table or at the bar and you have to drag the conversation out with her phone in her hand, scrolling through Instagram or some stupid shit, taking videos of the damn meal. None of that. Genuine interest. Wants to get to know you as well. Not, well, I'm here. You're just lucky. I'm the table. I'm breathing. You're breathing my air. You're so lucky I took the time out of my day to come see you. That energy doesn't exist. Really, it doesn't.
The women I spoke to seemed to take pleasure in the attention and in the dialogue. Nothing about the interaction indicated that they were annoyed or offended that I was interested in talking to them. Fourth, while a kind of chivalry exists in Japan, it's an inverted version of what we have here. In Japan, men come first. Women come second. it's difficult to appreciate how deeply the romantic ideology permeates our manners until you go to a completely different culture. For instance, one day I was walking towards the main entrance of a building at pretty much the same time as a woman. My natural instinct was to get there first and hold the door open for her. However, when I did so, she refused to walk through it, making a show of great embarrassment. And I later realized that in that culture, it would have been embarrassing for her if I had allowed myself to disrespect myself in that way for her sake. Another example. Many years ago, I spent some weeks in Japan studying Buto dance in an immersive program. The first night of the program, at the General Assembly, we heard a long speech on how the organizers miscalculated the number of futons they needed for the students. Apparently, there would not be enough beds for everyone, so the women would have to sleep on the bare floor without cushions or sheets until the problem was rectified. Now, there were a couple other Westerners in the audience, and I remember we were just looking at each other in disbelief. To say we were shocked would not be an understatement. The idea that the women were going to sleep on the ground while the men were going to sleep in the beds felt completely unnatural to us. However, our way of doing things is just as unnatural to Japanese sensibilities. That's starting to change more and more as Western ideologies continue to infiltrate Japanese society. But the important thing here is to understand that a lot of what many people believe to be the natural dynamic between men and women is really very culturally bounded and culturally specific. And to be honest, it felt good to be honored for being a man. Like, it's not a bad thing to be a man in Japan. In fact, it seems to come with some privileges that are more commensurate to the responsibilities that men generally take on. So let's recap. On the whole, Japanese women are slender and physically fit, feminine and demure, friendly and courteous, and respectful and appreciative. Not all Japanese women, I'm sure, but the vast majority of them, as far as I could tell. When I spoke with them, the feeling I got was that they felt lucky to be interacting with me, which is a total reversal of the attitude you generally encounter in the West. I've gone on a lot of dates in my day, and the prevailing vibes were either A, that I should feel lucky that the woman was allowing me to buy her a drink, or B, that the woman needed to make sure I could give her what she wanted by conducting the date like a job interview. There's a lot of entitlement and narcissism here. It's all about her. On the other hand, my sense is that in Japan, women feel grateful for the opportunity to be there, grateful for the opportunity to be considered as a potential partner. It was extremely refreshing, to say the least. Now, I'm not a fragile guy. I'm not a loser who can't get laid. I'm not poor or low status or unattractive. I'm not a guy without options. I don't need to travel halfway around the world to have satisfying relationships with women. But I now understand why it's in men's best interest to seek out the most advantageous marketplaces. It's like, regardless of whether you're a novice or a master fisherman, if you want to catch a certain kind of fish, it makes sense to go where there are more of those fishes.
Remember how I used to tell you guys all the time, take your lure and all your gear in your boat and fish in other lakes, rivers, and streams where the fish are better. It's that simple. If you don't like the pond you're in, go to another one. That's just a metaphor to the game. I mean, it really is that simple. Treat it like that. If you're laying your line out there and nothing's biting that you like, either your gear sucks, which is you don't have value, or the fish suck in the lake. Now, if you're a guy and you 100% know, bro, I'm not ugly, I make good money, I'm social enough, I got interesting hobbies, I shouldn't be having as rough of a time as I'm having. And then you go overseas, right? You take your boat and your gear overseas to another pond, and all of a sudden you can't, they keep jumping on the boat, bro. You're reeling too many in. You got to call it out. That's it. We're done, boys. We barely got on the lake. Got to leave because everything's full now. There's no more space in the cooler. And that's really what happens when guys go overseas. You notice the insane amount of interest that you're now getting because you're finally discovering your real value in the world by people whose eyeballs aren't messed up. They're able to see clearly and truly your value as a man. And that's what happens when you go overseas. The sex tourist losers, they're losers. And the community that calls themselves passport bros, anybody that advocates being under this umbrella or it's living a lifestyle that's anywhere near this should advocate to crush any loser that does sex tourism, because they will absolutely destroy the movement simply being guilty by association. We've seen this happen in a bunch of other spaces. When a movement goes mainstream, there are losers that attach themselves to it and inevitably will destroy it completely. So if people really want this to be a lifestyle that helps men, unlocking the doors for men that didn't think were possible before, showing them a lifestyle overseas. If you're one of these guys that are traveling overseas and you're more keen on the dating, less on the culture, less on nature, like not travel vlog, but really men's dating and stuff like that, it really rests on your shoulders to be a positive force in this community and have a positive message, and don't indulge in the degenerate ass sex tourism. Don't propagate all the negative stereotypes, because there's a lot of value here for a lot of men. Now let's get into the comment section and just see what some of the men might be saying. Men as a collective simply can't work with women who don't want to work with them. I'm seeing passport bros across all male demographics regarding of race or socioeconomic position. So we can't just say it's losers/incels having this problem. Gaslighting men doesn't fix the issue, but forces them to find more extreme measures of adapting. This matches my experience. I was in a long-term relationship in Japan and appreciated so much about my partner's ethics, healthy habits, and sense of femininity. The problem with dating/finding a wife in America is toxic feminism. Also with divorce laws in America, biased towards the women than the men. My Filipino wife and I are married 22 years. It was the usual M/F challenges plus some multicultural issues. Some of the multicultural issues are exciting, some are a growing process, and some don't go away. For instance, my wife is never going to like certain American foods, as is never going to become comfortable during winter. She's pretty severely seasonal affective. What I'd say is international women are still human. They have their quirks and their flaws. There is no faraway land with beautiful maidens that are going to be demure, submissive, and frisky in the bedroom for multiple decades. Everyone has their ups and downs. I say this because a lot of men have idealized visions in their heads. Basically, being on vacation in Japan and living in Japan would be very different experiences. It's not for everyone. You have to be adventurous, open-minded, and forgiving. You can't be broke either. Most of the women's expectations are modest, but it does cost some money to do traveling in the immigration process. So that's a real, head on your shoulders kind of take about the situation. Visiting is far different than living. Although if you could afford to visit, you could typically afford to live, because visiting is always more expensive. Exactly this. I do fine in the US and I'm fairly successful and athletic, but at times dating in the US feels like sifting through a dumpster looking for fresh pizza and then being asked to pay full price. Before I met my current girlfriend, I had an international thing for 3 years. The women in most other places are different in ways that just make them significantly better and more pleasant on the whole for relationships. I've met foreign strippers that conduct themselves better and have better attitudes and mentality than American lawyers. It's kind of sad. I mean, that encapsulates kind of what men are going through wholesale. And, it's unfortunate because the other side will not listen. They take it as a personal attack whenever you try to talk to women and voice your grievances as a man. You can't, because their world is crumbling apart. You're attacking them personally. If you say, hey, I would like it if you do this, this, or this, or this is what I'm looking for in women. It's like, I hate women. Oh, you're a misogynist. This and that. And then they double down on the delusion and the entitlement and the narcissism, and, goes in one ear, comes out the other, and they go about their day because there's always going to be a simp to bail them out. This is why they never learn, because you as a man, if you hold your feet firm and mark your boundaries and never let her cross them, you're going to hit with you're insecure, you're controlling, you're not a real man. We heard it all before, all the shaming language that they have. Then they'll go run off to some simp with no spine, none of the things I listed before, and that guy will break over backwards for her, break out the wallet, never say no, treat her like a little queen. And it's not even a queen. She's a succubus, literally draining him of his life force and his wallet. But he's okay just getting a sniff of her in the air because he's that thirsty. And she senses the thirst in him and abuses him for financial, emotional, and spiritual gain. Literally leaves the man as a husk, steals all his energy, and she moves on to the next victim, the next simp, the next simp. the next simp. And it's never ending because and then she meets a real man in the process, again, with those boundaries. That guy rejects her. And that's when she goes, men ain't ish, but then will go and suck the life out of simps over and over again. Her whole lifestyle depends on milking simps while looking for the man with boundaries, but not willing to enter the man's frame and be within the expectations of that real man because that's being controlled. So she goes back to the simp who has no control over her. That again makes her bored of her. That she doesn't respect, is not a real man. He's just a loser with an open wallet. You know, the self-perpetuating failure of modern women's dating strategy. And they all end up the same place. Post 30 years old, no man, no kids, no dating prospects, no marriage prospects, literally just pumps and dumps, collecting cats, watching Sex in the City, stupid drama shows, and then 40s show up, and then 50s show up, and then makes TikToks about dating in your 40s, dating in your 50s, doubling down on the idea that it's all a man's fault, never listening to all the men that have told her throughout her life what they were looking for in a long-term relationship. And she constantly kicked them off, flicked them away like they're cockroaches because they were trying to control me. Except at 40 and 50, there's no more simps to bail you out. Now the bitterness comes in. And you have the modern dating scheme wrapped in a bow right there. So yeah, get your passport, go overseas. As a man, you have this advantage. They don't, and they will suffer the consequences. So if you're struggling right now, just hold on, bro. Keep working. The self-improvement, it's well within your favor to do that. Even though you might not see the results if it comes to dating for 5-10 years where you're at, it works. As long as you get your money right, learn some valuable skills in the marketplace, start traveling overseas. It only has to be a vacation a week or two at a time. You don't have to uproot your life right away, but just get a taste of different cultures, different lifestyles, different communities. And then you'll get a better idea of where you would like to stay longer and longer. And you'll see how you get treated by people overseas. And it's completely different. The juice is worth the squeeze. It is going to take some time. You're coming from nothing. If you're a young man, just work on yourself. There is light at the end of the tunnel, even though it seems dark all around you because the culture is poisoned. It is worth it. And this is exactly the reason why I don't and will not ever advocate for men checking out of the system, because there is always a better system in place. Let me know what you guys think. See you on the next one. Hey everyone, if you have a minute, please head over to legionofmen.store and grab yourself some cool merch as well. We have a bunch of limited edition designs, brand new stuff on the way, and all the proceeds go to supporting the channel. We don't want to be sponsored by corporations where we have to submit videos for review, have our speech impeded, or push any products that we don't use. So thank you so much to everybody that goes into the shop. Again, it's legionofmen.store. I'll put it up here for you guys. First time customers get a 10% off, and we have a bunch of great designs by artists from the community that watch the channel and support. They get proceeds as well, a percentage of everything that gets sold. So community funded through and through. Again, appreciate you guys.